The night it happened, no one in our group of 20 had any idea that something ancient was waiting beneath the quiet surface of that Arizona lake. It started with a single scream cutting through the darkness, a scream so raw that even the crickets stopped. I still hear it sometimes when I try to sleep. That was the moment everything changed. The moment I realized the stories about creatures feeding on human blood were not myths, and that something in the desert had been watching us long before we arrived. We left Phoenix in 4 cars, a big group of college friends reunited after years of drifting apart. The plan was simple, a night picnic at Ash Grove Lake, a hidden spot deep inside Tonto National Forest. People said the skies were clear there, the silence peaceful, the view unreal. My name is Lucas, and I was the one who suggested the location after seeing a couple of pictures online. If only I had known that those pictures were at least a decade old and that the lake had changed. The water had turned darker. The trees leaned in strange directions. The land felt deserted, like nature itself didn't want to stay. The group was excited. There was laughter, music, the kind of lighthearted chatter people have when they think the world is harmless. Our friends included Rebecca, Adam, Melissa, Jonah, Eric, Charlotte, Tyler, Hannah, Grant, Riley, Oliver, Jenna, Cody, Sarah, Blake, Megan, and the twins, Evan and Elliot. We were 20 in total. I remember looking at all of them that afternoon and thinking how lucky we were to still be friends. If I had known only 4 of us would make it out alive, I would have held on to that moment longer. We reached the lake around sunset. The water was still, too still, and the air had a sweet metallic smell to it. I thought it was just the forest, but later I learned that smell was blood. The campsite was open, with a little grassy patch by the water and a few ruined wooden benches scattered around. Someone must have built them years ago, but no one bothered to repair anything since. Everyone rushed to unpack. Blankets, food, coolers, lanterns, speakers. Music started playing, and the group settled down, telling old jokes, teasing each other, taking pictures. Everything felt normal, like any other night out. But something about the lake bothered me from the beginning. When the wind blew, the surface rippled, but it didn't behave like water should. It felt thicker, slow, almost like something beneath it was resisting. As darkness settled, we lit a big campfire. Flames reflected on the lake, turning the black surface orange. That metallic smell grew stronger. I told myself it was my imagination, but my nerves kept tightening. Rebecca noticed I was quieter than usual and nudged me with a smile. "You good?" she asked. "Just tired," I said. I didn't want to ruin the mood. She shrugged and walked back to the group. Everything seemed fine until Jonah pointed at the tree line. 2 glowing red dots stared at us from between the branches. At first I thought it was an animal, maybe a pair of eyes reflecting firelight, but they didn't blink. They didn't move. They just watched. Jonah called out jokingly, asking if Bigfoot wanted a hot dog, and everyone laughed. The eyes vanished. We tried to brush it off, but the air changed after that. It felt like a pressure building, a slow tightening around us. Hours passed. People started drifting away from the fire, some toward their cars, others closer to the lake. I noticed the lake water move again, a ripple that started at the center and spread outward, despite the wind being completely still. The reflection of the moon was trembling, as if disturbed by something underneath. It was close to midnight when the first scream hit. It came from the direction of the ruined wooden pier. Riley had gone there with Cody to take night photos. We heard Riley shout something incomprehensible, then Cody's voice yelling for help. Everyone ran. The fire crackled behind us, the light flickering violently as if reacting to the chaos. We found them at the edge of the pier. Cody was nowhere to be seen. Riley was lying on the wooden planks, covered in scratches, her eyes open wide with terror. She kept repeating one thing over and over. It came from the water. She couldn't describe it, but there was a reddish bite mark on her arm. Something had pulled Cody into the lake. The surface was calm again, as if nothing happened. We called out his name, shining flashlights into the water, but it was useless. That was only the beginning. People panicked. We helped Riley walk back to the fire. She shook uncontrollably. Some wanted to leave immediately, but others argued that maybe Cody had fallen or been grabbed by an animal. That's when we heard a sound behind us. Rustling in the trees. footsteps circling us. Not one pair, several. Before anyone could react, something stepped into the firelight. It looked human, but its skin was pale gray. Its eyes glowed like burning coals. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, showing sharp, elongated fangs. It hissed, and suddenly 3 more emerged from the darkness. Panic exploded. People screamed. Some ran toward the cars. Others tried to fight. I froze. I couldn't move. One of the creatures pounced on Blake and tore into his neck. Blood spread across the ground. Hannah tried to drag him away, but another creature grabbed her and dragged her toward the trees, her hands scraping through dirt as she screamed for help. Chaos erupted everywhere. The group scattered. The creatures moved impossibly fast, almost gliding. I grabbed Rebecca's wrist and pulled her behind one of the cars. Adam, Charlotte, and Eric joined us. We crouched low, shaking, listening to the horrifying sounds around us. People were being torn apart. The screams were everywhere. Then everything went silent. The creatures stopped. Their heads twitched toward the lake. Something enormous rose from the water. A tall, dark figure, its shape shifting, its body made of shadows that curled and twisted like smoke. Its presence made the air colder. The creature stepped back, almost bowing. That's when I realized they were not the only threat. There was something older, something far more powerful in that lake. We heard Megan begging for help somewhere behind us. A creature dragged her across the ground, her nails carving lines into the dirt. Then she went quiet. I forced myself not to look. If I looked, I'd lose what little sanity I had left. We stayed hidden until the creatures moved away, disappearing into the woods again. The lake returned to stillness, as if satisfied. We regrouped with whoever survived. There were only 12 left, 8 gone in less than an hour. We needed a plan. The cars were scattered around the site. Some keys were lost in the struggle. The creatures lingered somewhere close, and the lake has something watching us. Charlotte broke down crying. Eric tried to calm her, but he was shaking just as much. We decided to stick together and move toward the cars on the north side where most keys were still with us. As we moved, the forest grew unnaturally quiet. The sky dimmed. The shadows grew longer. Then we heard the first whisper. It was soft, like someone calling our names from far away. Jonah turned around. Did someone say my name? No one had. The whisper continued, this time clearer. It sounded like Cody's voice. Help me. Jonah ran. We shouted for him to stop, but he didn't listen. We chased him, but the darkness swallowed him. By the time we found him, he was pinned against the tree, a creature's hand through his chest. Jonah was still alive, trying to speak, but blood poured down his mouth. The creature looked at us and smiled before crushing his ribs. We ran. There was nothing else we could do. By the time we got back to the clearing, the group was broken. People sobbed, gasped for breath, shook uncontrollably. The fire burned low, barely lighting the area. I kept thinking about the dark figure in the lake. The creatures obeyed it. Whatever it was in control. We tried to start the cars. 2 didn't start at all, their engines completely dead, batteries drained. The other 2 turned on, but the headlights flickered. Melissa started screaming that something was behind us. A tall shadow moved past the trees. Tyler tried to drive away, but as soon as the car reached the dirt road, it flipped. Not rolled, flipped, like a giant hand had smacked it. The survivors were now 10. Panic turned into pure hysteria. People ran in different directions. Charlotte and Grant disappeared into the woods. We never saw them again. Eric tried to call 911, but his phone showed no signal, not even emergency coverage. The creatures reappeared, crawling from the lake, water dripping from their bodies. Their claws scraped against the ground. They moved in coordinated patterns, circling us like predators who had hunted humans for centuries. The dark figure rose again from the lake center. This time it was taller. Its voice echoed inside our heads, not through the air. It wasn't speaking English. It wasn't any language I knew, yet it somehow felt like it was commanding the creatures. One of the creatures lunged at Melissa. It bit into her shoulder, pulling her away as she screamed for Adam. He tried to fight it with a broken bottle, but another creature pounced on Adam. The 2 of them vanished into the darkness, their screams fading. The survivors were down to 7. Rebecca grabbed my hand. She whispered, "We need to hide," her voice trembling. "We can't outrun them." We ran to an old abandoned ranger shack near the tree line. The door hung off its hinges, but it was shelter. We blocked it with furniture. The place was dusty, full of broken tools and old papers. There was a smell of rot inside, but it felt safer than the open forest. Inside, we found a journal. The last entry chilled us. It mentioned sightings of pale creatures near the lake, something ancient beneath the water, something that fed on life. The ranger wrote that the lake used to be sacred ground, and that something was trapped there, something not human. His last line read, "If anyone reads this, leave now. The lake is hungrier at night." As we read, we heard footsteps outside the shack. Slow, deliberate. The creature sniffed around, clawing lightly at the wood. We stayed absolutely still. At one point, something peered through a crack in the wall. Its eye glowed red. It saw us. It smiled. But it didn't break in. It walked away instead, like it was playing with us. We waited hours. The night stretched too long. It felt unnatural, like time had slowed.
It felt unnatural, like time had slowed. Eventually, the sound stopped. We peeked outside. The forest was silent again. Too silent. We decided to make a run for the remaining car. It was the only chance. The sky began to lighten slightly, a hint of dawn. We believed that daylight might weaken the creatures. We were wrong. As we ran toward the parking area, shadows moved behind us. Elliot tripped, and before we could help, two creatures dragged him away. Evan tried to save his twin, screaming his name, but a creature snapped Evan's leg and pulled him into the woods. Both brothers were gone within seconds. Only 5 of us remained. The car was in sight. We sprinted. Charlotte suddenly stumbled out from behind a tree, covered in blood, her clothes ripped. She screamed for help, running toward us, but before she reached us, the dark figure rose behind her. Its shadow wrapped around her like smoke. She didn't even scream when she was swallowed. We jumped into the car. The keys were already in the ignition. I turned them. The engine sputtered. For a moment I thought it wouldn't start, but then it roared to life. The headlights flickered. Rebecca sat beside me, begging me to hurry. Eric and Jenna sat in the back, both crying, both bleeding from cuts and scratches. We drove. Fast. The creatures chased us, leaping alongside the vehicle, slamming their bodies against the doors. The dark figure moved across the lake surface, gliding toward the road, as if the land didn't matter. I kept driving, focusing on the dirt trail that led to the main highway. One of the creatures jumped on the hood, its face pressed against the windshield, its mouth opening wider than humanly possible. I swerved hard, slamming it into a tree. The car jolted. Jenna screamed as another creature grabbed her through the broken back window. It pulled her out, her hands slipping from Eric's grasp. Her scream disappeared into the forest. We reached the highway. The sunlight finally broke across the horizon. The creatures stopped at the tree line, snarling but not stepping onto the open road. The dark figure sank back into the shadows. It couldn't follow us. Only 4 of us survived. Me, Rebecca, Eric, and Tyler, who we found running down the road minutes later, his clothes torn, his face pale, his mind half gone from shock. We called the police. The FBI came too. They found the campsite destroyed, but almost no bodies. Only blood, a lot of blood, and claw marks on trees that no animal in Arizona could make. They questioned us for days. We told them everything. They didn't believe a word. The official report labeled it an animal attack and closed the case. Months passed. None of us slept properly. Nightmares haunted us. The whispers from the forest followed us in our dreams. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to tell the world what happened. I created a YouTube channel and posted our story in full detail. Rebecca, Eric, and Tyler joined me. Within minutes, the video exploded. Views skyrocketed. Thousands of comments poured in, some calling us liars, others begging for more details. Many said they had seen red glowing eyes near lakes and forests in Arizona. People shared their own encounters. We didn't expect the video to go viral this fast, but maybe the world needed to know. Maybe someone else had survived similar creatures. Maybe the things in that lake were older and more widespread than we realized. Some nights I still dream of the dark figure rising from the water, its shadow stretching across the land. I wake up sweating, convinced it remembers us, convinced it's waiting for the right moment to come back. And sometimes, when my room is quiet, I hear Jonah's voice whisper my name from the corner. I know this story isn't over. The lake is still there. The creatures are still hungry, and we were not the last ones to see them.